Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Aditi Tapariya, currently working as a demand control manager at Beam Suntory, an American-founded Japanese multinational company that produces alcoholic beverages. I'm a lost millennial. My goal is to move around work experiences before I settle, she says, having shifted across 3 continents, 5 companies, and 6 different job roles in the last 5 years. Aditi likes Indian Chinese food, collecting footwear, and is a barista in the making. Welcome, Aditi, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Thank you, Milan, for having me here. It's an honor.
Joy and pleasure is as much ours as it is yours. So, why don't we jump into the conversation? Because I'm kind of curious here to know who is a demand control manager. And I've kind of looked up, but would love to know more about what is Beam Suntory.
So let's talk about the company first. It's American owned, but now it is being governed by a Japanese company. It's an amalgamation of 2 big bourbon making companies of the world. Our company makes a lot of alcoholic products. And as a demand control manager, I sit in the S&OP department of the company, which is basically supply and planning department, where we plan, forecast what we want to produce for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. As everybody knows, whiskey and bourbon needs to age. So it's always interesting to plan 8 years ahead, because we have to put a barrel somewhere so that the alcohol would be ready after 8 years. So that is a long-term part of the planning. But my role actually sits in the short-term planning. Mm-hmm. So I have seen since I started working in supply chain, that everybody always focused on long-term planning, which was perfect at that point of time. And then pandemic hit. And short-term planning became the most vital part of every organization. And that's how my role actually evolved in many companies. It was always part of the companies, but it was always retained in small roles. Everybody was a demand control manager who was sitting in the S&OP team. But now there is actually a separate role who plans for short term. So my role is to risk mitigate, find root cause analysis on any kind of problem, and come up with interesting and out of the box solutions. So interesting example would be, recently we had a big glass shortage. So glass shortage in our industry means there is no bottle to put alcohol in and give it to the customers. Mm-hmm. So everybody was coming up with interesting solutions. Can we buy glass from different vendors? Can we make our bottle look differently? But being in an alcohol industry and you're selling your product for 20 years, you cannot have a different looking bottle, mm-hmm. because people have a touch and feel attached to it. So an interesting observation and interesting solution our company decided on a spot was to come up with the plastic bottles, even though nobody likes it. But mm-hmm. This is how demand control managers come up. You just have to come up with a solution, which is a band-aid. It cannot be a full-time solution, but it is a solution for that point of time so that the business keeps running and flowing.
I like my beer, not as much as a bourbon or whiskey. I'm not a bourbon whiskey person. I'm kind of a beer and a wine person. And much of my life, I've enjoyed beer, not enjoyed, seen or experienced beer coming in a glass bottle all the time. Mm-hmm. And there is this new brand of beer, German sounding name, but very much made right here in Pune, India, called mm-hmm. Effingut, mm-hmm. spelled as EFFINGUT. And it kind of became mm-hmm. a rage. And one of the reasons why it became a rage was the beer came in a 1 liter PET bottles, which was so different. And if you open the bottle, the fizz would be the same as it would be of a glass bottle. But it took me a long time to kind of mentally get adjusted from a glass bottle to a plastic. I don't know whether this is how, how did your clients react when you kind of world over moved from bottle to
I can't talk about my clients, but I personally did not like the plastic bottle. It feels cheap. It feels like even though I'm spending that much, you may go and spend like $50 for a bottle, but if you get a plastic bottle, you won't even feel the worth of that bottle. And you'll be like feeling that I'm drinking a cheap product. Maybe because it has been cultivated in our minds that plastic is always a cheap product. maybe we'll have best of plastics later on, but glass always feels good. And there's always a reuse for those bottles. Like I have planted a lot of plants in my glass bottles.
Undoubtedly.
I mean, so.
Alcohol, apart from the tizziness that it gives you, for me, it's the whole experience, right? I mean, everything. And one kind of gets so well tuned to that. But tell me, as a demand control manager in this large global multinational, what are the highs and lows you go through on a typical day?
So there's so few things which I've learned being in this role for such a short time is communication and being always politically correct and pleasing people, even though you won't be able to, but you have to navigate very nicely with different channels of the organization. So I, at one point of time, interact with sales, then my marketing team, then my demand team is also my customer because they're planning for long-term, supply planning team, and then customer service. And all of them have different expectations, even though the mindset of everybody is same. We have to grow the business, but everybody has different expectations to grow the business. And as a demand control managers, you have to navigate through all of them, try to please everybody, and if not, get them board on the same page. So communication is the key, which I've felt, even though people and the job description always says it needs a really good communication skills, I've always ignored that line. But in this job, I actually realized you really need a good communication skills. You have to be like politically correct. And how do I say the word? You have to be smart. Like you have to please everybody in a nice way.
So
as they
say, as we Desi says, we have to be a mithi churi.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So maybe I wonder if being the Indian girl that you are, born and raised much of your life in India, though you're living in Chicago and working there, having this DNA of being an Indian mithi churi, does it help in your job? I wonder.
It helps, but on the hindsight, I'm also very straightforward. If I don't like anything, or if I do not believe into it, or I have opinions against it, it just comes on my face directly. I don't have a poker face. So I've sat into meetings where my boss is like, can you just smile for 5 seconds? I was like, it doesn't make sense to smile. But yes, definitely my Indian skills are used. And those things you learn, like while growing up in India, these small things you learn and navigate through how to be cunning but nice.
That's why the phrase mithi churi, right? I mean,
yeah.
You have to strike hard where required, but yet be soft, like a butter knife in that sense. But how did you land up in this role? I mean, you did your graduation here, you did your MBA in India, and then you've traversed various geographies, and you call yourself as a lost millennial.
I am a lost millennial, and I like that title. I don't want to define myself right now. I'm not ready to define myself right now. So that's why I call lost. And lost gives me an ability to try new things and keep exploring till I find something which I really like and I'm passionate about it. But it's an interesting journey. I started it. I went to school in India, did my high school, undergrad, everything in Delhi. Started my career in accounting, which was interesting because my dad was an accountant. So I had a choice, either become like your dad or become like mom. I don't know why I got fascinated with my dad's career more. So I decided to become an accountant and started working with Deloitte at that point of time. After a few months, after enjoying the first 6 months of paychecks, I started realizing that I really dislike this job and I don't want to become an accountant. But had to navigate through that and got a breakthrough to go to Flame, where we met.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I came. I did my finance MBA there.
Yes.
And interestingly, while I was doing an MBA, I got an internship with supply chain department at Coca-Cola. Till then, I've never heard about supply chain. I did not actually even take any courses in the college for supply chain, even though we study organization, but never understood supply chain and the importance of supply chain in any organization. And Coca-Cola being such a big company, in the CPG industry, it was interesting to work for a project for them, and which was a simple process improvement. And today, when I look back to that role, I always feel what I could do differently if I would have gone back to that role, because I've learned so much about supply chain. It was a very simple problem at Coca-Cola, and I keep thinking about that problem. I don't know why. The solution I proposed at that time, I was never happy with that solution. And it was, again, a problem solving. And I keep thinking about it. What could I have done? And what more tools or more experts I would have consulted to solve that problem. So that's where I was introduced to supply chain. But once I graduated from college, I got a job opportunity in London for a commodity trading company as an economic researcher. First, it was London. I would have said yes to any job in London for that matter at that time. So economic researcher, yes, I will come. Who cares about supply chain? But moving to London was very exciting. I wanted to move away from India, explore different parts of the world, travel, learn new things, and work in different cultures. I felt Indian culture is important, but let's explore other cultures and work around them.
How old were you when you moved to UK?
I think I was about 25. Oh, no, 23 or 24. Yeah.
So right age, right place, right kind of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything going right for Aditi.
Yes, I think that was the best year I've ever had in my life. The time I worked in London, I learned a lot. I met some amazing brains. Like those people were superbly smart. They did not go to like big colleges. So in India, while growing up, having a big college and a tag name was very important.
Yes.
Like I've always seen, I have brothers and sisters who went to like best of colleges in India, and how important they and prestigious our family made them. And I did not go to a very big, a high tier college. So I never got that importance while growing up, like my brothers and sisters. But when I moved to London, everybody was equal and everybody was smart all of a sudden. And it was a clean slate. And I learned a lot. I worked really hard. Like I remember going to office at 6 o'clock in the morning and coming out at like 11 o'clock in the night, just because I wanted to work hard and I was enjoying my work. But I actually drained myself too, because it was a trading company. And I could see when people say, and all the movies have picturized that how traders are really tough, it was a very tough dynamics to work in. And I could not see myself working there forever. Like the first few years is good. It's good money, good learning experience, but it's not a long-term solution for me. At least I was not enjoying life. I was not enjoying London. And during this time, I also started dating my husband at that time, my boyfriend at that time. And then we decided to settle in US. And that's when I came to US and worked in a bunch of companies before I landed up into Beam Suntory. I did go to school also in US for supply chain, because I thought, oh, I like that. I should go back for a formal education in supply chain and planning.
Any fond memories from your short stint in London, at work or otherwise? Something that you will cherish for a long time.
Oh, I tried one of the best restaurants. Like, so I actually tried all my firsts there. First sushi, first taco, first Negroni. I actually never knew what was a Negroni before that. So it was a lot of my first pair of expensive shoes.
How expensive were they?
It was 300 pounds at that time, and it was expensive. Like when I told my parents, my dad said, does the shoe walk on its own, or do you have to drag it? Yeah. He still doesn't get my shoe obsession, but yeah.
We'll come to that a little later. But then did you pick any Brit accent? I mean, I love Brit accent. I mean, I love the way every character in this TV show Crown speaks. I mean, I would have seen it, God knows how many times. I see that I love the British TV operas. I don't know why, at least period ones,
Oh, definitely. I like those too. Yeah. Bridgerton is my new favorite, which I'm watching.
Correct. Absolutely. So what was a different, feeling you had when you were in the US? I mean, or is it kind of more or less similar?
It is different.
How
It
different
is
is
very
living?
different.
How different is living in the US compared to living in the UK?
Uh, People in UK still do not have work-life balance as well defined as in US.
Mm-hmm.
People in US, I feel we're far ahead in work-life balance as a notion. We
Mm-hmm.
talk and we actually practice it.
Mm-hmm.
In UK, I did not see it. Maybe the company I was working for was not the right company, but I never saw that. And it was a very like I think Indian culture is very much inspired by UK culture in some way.
Mm-hmm.
You are respected when you work like more than 8 hours. But on the other hand, the relationship with your peers and with your boss gets more friendlier when you move to UK.
Mm-hmm.
So my eventually after 3 or 4 months working there, my boss and me had a very friendly relationships. Like we would go for a run, we would hit a bar after our work every Thursday and Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We would know about each other's personal life. Like I was dating my husband that time, and I was sharing all my personal details also with him. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a very family kind of relationship also at the same time. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that made me invested more into my stay in London. And
Mm-hmm.
coming back to your first question, yes, I did pick up my British accent, like a little tidbits while working there. But I'm telling you, the Irish accent is the toughest accent I've ever seen in my life.
Let's hear a Brit accent from you right now, if you can.
Oh, it can't come out. I think when you are there, it just comes naturally. Take me to a British restaurant and I'll start talking like that. And my husband is like, how fake is this? It's like it just comes out from within.
I mean, I kind of love that. Absolutely. So, so how long are you living in the US now?
I think it's about 5 years.
And
June
how
20th, it would be 5 years.
and the London stay?
London stay was about 2 years.
Okay, so it's about 7 odd years that you have kind of left India and are kind of exploring various cultures, organizations, job roles. I guess probably discovering yourself on the way. So as an Indian girl, right, from Delhi, having lived your life in India and then navigated to where you are today, how have you seen Aditi evolve? What has changed in her over the last, let's say, 7 years that you have left India?
A very interesting question. I've become a little more scared about trying new things now.
Surprise, that's kind of paradox.
It is. And I was just thinking about it. It could be I'm ready to try more stable things. But when I left from India 7 years ago, I wasn't afraid about anything in this world. But now I actually think back about the people. I'm more responsible. I'm more like few things which have changed. I've become more sustainably aware. I take care of myself more. I work out more religiously. I take my health very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I take my job very seriously. It's not about just paying my bills, but I feel invested into doing something good. And the third big change I've seen in myself is giving back to community.
Mm-hmm.
7 years ago, I never thought about community. While growing up in India, I never thought about. I was sympathetic to the people,
Mm-hmm.
but I was never empathetic to the situation and never thought about giving it back in any which way.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I am more empathetic. Sympathy is always there, but
Sure.
it's not important and it's not enough. But I have empathy now and I have more awareness about my surroundings. And I'm always thinking, how can I make it better? What can I do to make this situation better for anybody, not just for myself?
No, interesting, because I mean, I'm kind of mentally getting an image as I was listening to you in terms of how Aditi has, evolved over the last 7 years. It was like as if a large ship left the shores of India, wanting to go, as they say in Star Trek, where no man has ever gone, in that sense. But yeah, charting. Going uncharted territories and waters. That's the ship that left India, but the same ship today seems to be enjoying the various anchors it has found. Would it be fair to say that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I don't miss the Aditi 7 years ago. No. That Aditi had its own full life at that point of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm enjoying this new Aditi who's ready to learn, who's ready to learn these new things like being a part-time barista or going for a pottery class or anything like, and definitely more responsible, which I like about myself.
Pick 3 adjectives that would define Aditi of today. 3 words.
3 words. Okay. Curious, empathetic, grounded.
Can you say more about the last word?
By grounded, I mean, while growing up in India, I took everything for granted. And I had all the comforts and pleasures which a person could have in India, growing up in a decent background in India. Never had to work.
Big family?
Never washed.
Big family?
Sorry?
Big family?
No, I was born and raised in a very nuclear family, but we had our relatives around. So like every weekend meeting our relatives, but I was raised predominantly in a nuclear family, but never did anything, like never washed my clothes, did not know how to load a dishwasher. Today I can do both the things together. So this is the evolution.
And cook as well?
And cook as well, and feed myself with decent amount of food. But yes, I think those are the things which makes you more grounded and more conscious about your money and your power, what you have. At that time, you always take whatever was given to you for granted. I remember my first salary in Deloitte. What did I do with it? I shopped clothes and I went to a bar and basically did everything with my salary. Today, I invest. I think about what I have to do with this money. How can I give back to the community who has given me that money? So that makes me say that I'm grounded. Probably.
And what is she curious about today?
Learning new things, what's happening to the environment, being more conscious, more knowing about people, meeting new people, new technologies, new softwares. Everything is very filled with very lot of curious things. Like my new car is keeping me curious these days.
What make and model is this?
Tesla Model Y.
Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? You know, I've always enjoyed reading books or seeing movies, not just to kind of enjoy the protagonists of the book or the movie, but also I enjoy the various supporting cast that is built around the main protagonist, and see how in very unknown, unconscious way, these supporting characters are living their own lives, but influencing or leaving a big mark on the protagonists of the story, be it a book or a movie. So I wonder if there is this book or a movie on you called, let's say, hypothetically, That's Me. That's the title of the book or the movie. What would be the supporting cast of that movie which has left a mark on Aditi over the years?
It would be definitely my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that whatever journey I have evolved, it is because of my support system. And this support system, I keep my parents, then my sister, and now my husband. I think these are my trust. This is my trust circle. I can lean on to them. They're my soundboard. I can throw ideas. They may not be always accepted, but I'll always get an honest opinion without any biases. They always want good for me in their heart. So they will always take a decision which is better meant for me. So these people are definitely in my core support system and have shaped Aditi and have made Aditi evolve to a person I am today. And eventually they will be helping me forever in the evolvement process. And apart from that, there's some external friends, some really close other relatives, some mentors, and some old uh, colleagues and bosses, which I have kept in touch and which have helped me in my shaping of my career or shaping me as a human being, showing me different parts or different things which I never thought about. So I feel in one's life to identify that support system is very important. And after identifying, making sure to keep that closer to you. Basically, this is your, uh, what do you call in Hindi? Jama Punji. So make sure that you keep it as safely as possible because you can earn money. You can get all the titles or all the designations in your career, wherever you want to go or whatever you want to achieve. But this core circle of yours will make you a person what you want to be actually. And it will make you a better person, which you don't even dream of sometimes.
For me, there have been moments in my life. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics here, but where the lows were so low to the extent of I was kind of asking my own whether, I am worth myself. The self-worth was at its pits. And there was some kind of a self-hate that happened that I think this is not the Milind that I like. This is not me. And kind of I fragmented myself, psychologically in my mind that this is the good me that I like, enjoy being a part with, and this is not the good me, and somehow I want to keep it aside. And I was kind of, tearing myself in that moment. And there was this person who actually sat down with me and said that you are good. You're not only good, you're good enough in all respects. And a series of conversation happened with that person over a couple of weeks and months. And somehow it left me with a strong sense of self-worth, which has never gone down since those days. Yeah. So for me, one of the things that a support system or an anchor or a sounding board does is to accept me as I am. Mm-hmm. Without forming any judgments, without giving any opinions, without giving any advice. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, how do you look at this notion of, how has this played out for you, Aditi? Any experiences which you are comfortable in sharing?
So they were not, I think it was not a support system I was born with. Mm-hmm. They were my family I was born with.
Of course.
Support system is what we built together around it. Mm-hmm. My parents were not my support system when I was a teenager. No, they were not.
Mm-hmm. Their parents.
Yeah, their parents, exactly. But as we all grew older, we accepted that our relationship is beyond just being a kid to them and they're just being parents to me. Mm-hmm. Similarly, just being a sister to my sister was just not enough for us, and just being a spouse to my husband, which is an important part,
of course,
but we had to take our relationship to the next level, and that's how we created a support system around us. And we feel, as you said, it's a very non-judgmental area. It hasn't happened, like I don't recall any incident.
No, fair enough. For example, one of the things notions that I have experienced through that my own, personal, very intense personal experiences. If I were to explain it mathematically, that trust is directly proportionate to the sense of vulnerability.
Yes.
Higher or more I am vulnerable in a particular relationship, the experience of trust, counterintuitively, actually, seems to be more for me.
Yep. And yeah, now when you say that, I've been in different phases vulnerable to these people in my support system.
Mm.
Maybe with my parents being very honest about uh, I this is some things which in my life which I don't want, and I don't want to do those things, uh, and explaining them my notion. They may not understand it today, but that would be just being vocal about it helped me. Uh, with my sister, I think the bond created more as we both moved to US. One of the reason I chose US as a base to settle down is just because I had my sister here. So we are like the support system here to each other for very small things to big things. Anything happens big in our family, like recently a close family relative passed away. How did we both deal here? Away from India, and one of us could not travel. I could not travel to India. She could. And then how we navigated, like making sure that I also travel and we have to be part. So it's even though everybody you can collectively lose in India, but how two people away from that surrounding show there or go through that kind of remorse, and how do they cope up even though they're sitting alone, sitting in a home? How did we deal with it? So that's how she became my support system. And yeah, and my for my husband, what I can say, he's like an amalgamation of all of those, and I think he became the support system because he connected with my family really well.
Mm.
That's how I could trust him, because my mother could trust him more than she trusts me sometimes. So that's how that person got into the support system. So I think, to your point, yes, being vulnerable is very important, and being honest to them is very important, and it is really hard telling them because that's what they don't want to hear.
Undoubtedly, a mentor, teacher, and now a friend of mine over many years, sat down and explained to me this very old Indian notion called Sahriday Samvad. Essentially, very loosely translated in English, is honest, heartfelt conversation. I guess that's the kind of foundation on which I think we build our lives and have wonderful people. But Aditi, let's move to a different phase of your life, with your obsession for footwear, with your obsession for coffee, with your obsession for traveling, and your obsession for what you call Indian Chinese food.
Yes.
So what is all this?
First, there is no good Indian Chinese restaurant in US. If anybody listening to this podcast and knows a good Indian Chinese restaurant in US, hit me up. uh, so I think whenever I learn or see a new thing, coming back to the curiosity in me, I
Yes.
want to know how did it actually came into being and how it evolved. So it's funny that today we are recording the podcast, and today is the birth anniversary of the inventor of espresso machine.
Really?
Yes. It
Wow.
was yesterday. So it was today in US and it was
Yes.
yesterday in India.
Yes.
So those few that how I'm curious about things. Like, how did espresso machine was created in the world? What did the first espresso machine look like? Me and my husband took a trip to Colombia, I think 3 years ago. It was a very funny trip because my dad just watched Narcos a day before we took our flight. Yeah, he said, "Are you sure you're going to Colombia?" I was like, "Everything is not television. We are from India. We can handle everything." But it was a trip where we learned a lot about coffee. We went to a lot of coffee plantation tours, and while traveling, we read a lot about coffee and how did coffee came into being, and what does the first coffee bean look like? Why did people actually started creating coffee around it? So that's how the curiosity kept going. We then invested into coffee machines, and then now we can say we are a good immature home baristas. We make espressos in the morning, but we are home baristas. And I wanted to get like a formal training into it. And some kind of a school, but I can't leave my full 9 to 5 job to go to a school. So that's how I decided to apply for a part-time barista position in Chicago, which all the money I'll earn will go into my shoe obsession. But it's like it's way of learning, but also in a practical environment. And it will teach me more than just pour a perfect cup of espresso, but about how learning and talking to customers. And there'll be different types of customers. Like in the morning, you can have angry customers. I like imagine a person who gets up and who doesn't get a good cup of coffee before starting its day. What kind of mood the person could be. And I am that grumpy person. If I don't get a good cup of coffee in the morning, I am grumpier throughout the day. So making sure you help somebody's grumpiness, and you learn empathy, because there'll be different types of people who will walk into a store and you have to interact with them, and you have to interact with them on an equal basis. So
Is this a
you
full-time
learn over
weekend?
it.
Is this a full-time weekend job?
It's a weekend, yeah, full time. It would be 4 plus 4. So I have to give 20 hours a week, basically. And I can split whichever ways I want to do it, but they want me on Saturdays and Sunday predominantly.
And do you wear then your apron and all that stuff while
Yeah,
you have?
you get all the fancy things.
And
you
do
get you get free unlimited coffee, which is like the
Oh.
best perk anybody could get. So that's how I call my obsessions, which are always backed up by curiosity. The same thing happened with my shoe obsession when I started buying shoes. I went to a shoe museum. So London has notoriously have small museums all across the city. And I went to a shoe museum with my friend, and I saw different types of shoes. And I never thought shoes could be so much important and so beautiful, and such a big fashion statement also. So that's how I started reading about it. How did first pair of Mary Jane was created? And now, look, we are in this era where Mary Janes are coming back into fashion. So it makes me wonder, how shoes have also evolved. And I was thinking right now, like if I take a trip back to India, I have to get those kadaos, those lakdi wale shoes, which has like no base but just one pointy thing on it that you have to wear.
It's kind of pronounced as khadawa or khadaus. So all hard wood in that sense.
Yes, all hardwood, handmade. So yeah, I was thinking I should own.
All those sadhus in Rishikesh wear them.
Yes,
exactly. But it's difficult to walk.
You're basically dragging your feet.
Absolutely, we are dragging your feet. So footwear, coffee seem to be a current obsession. Where does curious Aditi go next? What is on her radar next in terms of obsession?
I think it would go towards pottery. This is my new thing.
Okay.
I just saw this show, I think on HBO it was, about pottery and potters. And it all starts with me collecting some sustainable pieces in my house. It always starts with that. Like, we stopped using plastic altogether. So now anything we have to be mindful. If we're getting ceramic plates, it has to be like 10 ceramic plates. We can't have, like, I don't want 5 dinner sets floating in my house. I just want 10 plates. We keep reusing them. We break them, and then we go and buy new of them. So I thought about making my own dinner set, and I am reading about pottery. And interestingly, pottery was one of the first thing in the civilizations when man came to being. That was one of the first thing.
Yes.
And it would teach me a lot of things, how we have evolved as humans. So
wonderful. I mean, Aditi, it seems that you pick and choose your obsessions very wisely, well thought out, and somehow I sense that once you have picked those, the SNOP mindset of your kicks in, which is
definitely
apply your mind in terms of systems, process, research. And kind of have a meticulous plan to follow it till the end, till you kind of move to the next. So wonderful this is. But Aditi, this has been such a breezy and a beautiful conversation of a very different kind of a young girl, born, raised in India with strong Indian values, who have kind of left shores enjoyed life in UK, enjoying life in the US, to, in the near term, whatever you may define as near term, what are your dreams and aspirations for yourself?
For the career-wise, I want to grow more in supply chain and eventually move towards business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I love strategizing and I think I can hold a big project from start to finish. And all these, my small obsessions is like my small mini projects, which I am the guinea pig for those projects only. And I feel holding something in business and calling your own would be interesting. And applying strategy, like I think that is one field where you can apply your textbook knowledge to life, and people will pay you for that.
Of course.
Which is interesting. Generally, textbook knowledge, the past how many years I've worked, I've not seen applying my textbook knowledge. So you learn, you basically, your textbook has helped you to think in that way, but you can't just open it and apply it. But I think business strategy would be one field where I want to navigate in my career. Want to definitely stay with the CPG industry. That's something which I found out. And that's interesting about me. I like working with any company whose product I can hold and use. I've worked with a lot of companies.
And experience them.
Yes, and experience them. So it has to be like a tangible product. I worked with the furniture industry and I loved working with them. But when I was working for the company before this, I could not relate with the product that much. And maybe that's why I was not giving my 100% of the role, I would say. So that would be in my career wise. Personally, I want to grow a better human being, meet new people, learn from their lives and their life struggles and stories, because I think that's the fastest way you can become a better human, learn from others, how they have evolved.
Absolutely. So Aditi, the strategist that you are, the troubleshooter and the problem solver that you are, and I guess somewhere the person who likes to set ambitious goals and pursue them without giving them up, like a warrior, seems to be a very natural side of you. But in all this, I can say is, this does require looking at oneself, I would like to believe, of taking care of oneself as well, because we tend to assume our body, mind, spirit in a blind way, assuming that it'll stay strong and tall. But I'm sure as you will pursue all your aspirations and goals and dreams in life, you will nourish yourself too in every aspect. So thank you very much for having this conversation. This has been a wonderful experience for me personally. Happy to get in touch with you after so many years from our Flame days. And yes, from a student, Aditi, I see you evolve and mature into a very young woman who's kind of taking on the world in her own way. So thank you very much. And just to love to hear from you, how has this conversation been for you?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It is such a big pleasure and honor to be part of a podcast, because I never thought about that I will be. And thank you for considering me. The journey of sitting here and having a conversation has been interesting. Meeting your wife, meeting you, knowing more about you is always nice. So a very big heartfelt thank you. And it was a nice conversation. Like, I have never talked about myself for more than 5 minutes. So it was interesting to talk about it.
Thank you, Aditi. Wish you good luck. Take care and stay safe. Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75 at gmail.com. Thank you.